I want to start this panel, which is about the challenges and opportunities about the digital world, the digital transformation. Just to be very brief at the beginning, I want to get a very small pick from you, and I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce you about what do you think, what do you understand by digital transformation. So Amy's coming representing HBR as their editor. Facundo, with your neuroscience background and that amazing talk that you gave before. And Mundo, who very humbly says he's just a professor at IPADE, but we know he has an amazing background as president of GE in Latin America, huge background in innovation. So what does digital transformation mean to you?
Well, why don't I jump in first?
Okay.
To me, digital transformation is the myriad ways that IT, that technology is transforming, is changing the ways that we do business.
Well, for me, it represents a lot of stress.
We'll
get into that.
Yeah.
But is it fear?
No, okay. No. It's like a kind of a multitasking.
Okay.
And also, I think it's a great opportunity to go back to the human factor. I will explain later what I mean by that.
I think it's a great excuse. I think it's a great excuse to re-look at the way we've been doing business, and it gives us the license to try different things.
Is your feeling about this transformation hopeful, or are you worried about it?
I'm worried about it, but I'm very optimistic. I think that it's a great way for us. I'll be very parochial and speak about HBR. It will enable us, it is enabling us to serve more people better and to achieve our mission of improving management in a changing world. So I'm extremely hopeful. I think the problem, that it's a human problem, I see it all the time with people who are fearful of the ways technology are threatening the way they do their job. And really what they have to do is do their jobs a little differently. It doesn't mean they're broken. It just means they have to think about what they do differently. And it's like anything new. You put more energy into the fear than you do into making the change, and it turns out making the change just isn't that hard most of the time.
A few points. The first one is that we have to understand this digital revolution as another task that we have as a human beings. We think that this is new, but in fact, when Gutenberg invented the printing press, at that time, for that, those people living at that time, the situation was similar. They thought, the books will steal our memory. Like we think now that online information will steal our memory, will hijack our memory. And didn't happen and won't happen, because memory is more about experience and not about remembering the number of people living in Peking, Beijing. So I think that this is not new. There won't be a new part of the brain dedicated to the digital world. There won't be a new editor for Facebook or Twitter. So, and I am president of one university in Argentina, and we are thinking, like many universities, about the future of education. And I think that the digital transformation will be very helpful, will provide new possibilities, but it has to be blended with the human content. I will tell you an experiment that was done in Seattle by Patricia Cole, one of the best people in cognitive neuroscience. And basically, they put a Chinese guy teaching Chinese to kids, American kids, who were only exposed to English before the experiment. And the Chinese guy was teaching English for X amount of time. And then the other group of kids from the same neighborhood, the same background, were receiving the Chinese classes by the same Chinese by TV. And the third group of kids were receiving the Chinese classes by headphones. The same Chinese guy, the same technique, the same doses of Chinese, but in different modalities. The personal contact, TV, and headphones. After the experiment, the kids who were exposed to the personal contact were able to learn Chinese. And the other two groups didn't learn anything. The only difference was the personal contact. Because the human brain learns basically when something motivates us, when something is an example for us. And so I don't think that the human factor will be replaced. I think the future is a combination between digital information and the human factor. I think that is why I say before that we have to go. This is a nice opportunity to go back to the human contact and human factor with digital information. I think the blended education is an example. I don't see the future of education by YouTube, but also I don't see the future of education just personal. I think a combination of both.
Technology experts tend to say that when there is a lot of technology, technology becomes invisible. And when it becomes invisible, it's human relationships that matter.
Yes.
I think you've said several times during the morning that empathy, creativity are going to be probably the main values in the future. People often think about technology as something that dehumanizes us, but it doesn't look to be that way. The values that are going to be more important are the most human-like,
Yes.
or the most unique to humans, and we are going to need to build a way to train those skills.
Let me say one thing from my medical background. Social isolation kills.
Mm-hmm.
People who feel loneliness chronically die before, 1 decade before. I think social isolation is a mortality factor as obesity. The most important factor for well-being is social connectivity.
Now comes a difficult question. Are we educating people right? Are we doing things right here? What should we do different?
I think that's the biggest challenge that I see, or one of the huge challenge, because I think the human factor will be there. What I'm very worried about is whether our organizations, whether our leadership skills and capabilities and training, whether the cultural aspect is prepared to cope with such a huge transformation. We can spend a lot of time, and I'm not an expert on that, talking about the different examples and implications from the technology perspective, this wave, this tsunami, that is happening there. There's no way we can avoid that. But I'm very worried about whether we are having the ability, not even the ability, whether we recognize the implication for us as leaders, for us as organizations, and I think we have to take into consideration the cultural aspect of it. And let me just give a couple of examples. I was listening to the radio interview today in the morning, driving here to IPADE 6:30. I know you've been awake, you two, from early on. And I remember
really early here in Mexico.
this person that interviewed you asked you, what was your opinion about the couple of aspects, and you will phrase it the right way, the couple of aspects that you thought were the most predominant in terms of companies that were growing and evolving. And you said openness and flexibility. That's what you said. And I was half kidding, half serious at breakfast today, Amy, when I said I heard openness and flexibility, and I thought about myself as a parent, and I don't think my daughters would say open and flexibility describes me. But then let's move that idea a little bit step higher, and then I would say, would my company of 30 people, would they describe me as open and flexible? And I would say probably not. And then I keep moving up that concept, and I said, would our education describe the way we are educating leaders and students open and flexible? I would say no. And then we keep going all the way to the whole cultural aspect of Mexico and maybe Latin America, Argentina may be a little different. And I think those are the challenges that we're facing. This technology transformation demands openness, flexibility, ability to learn constantly, and it's the culture of the whole country, and then the education, and then the business, and then the church, and then the family. Are we prepared to cope with that? I don't think so. So I'm worried about that. I think that's something that we have to figure out what are the implications, which was your second question. We'll discuss it, but I'm worried about that.
One of the things that occurs to me when you're talking, is that you kind of need an optimism, you asked about optimism? You can't embrace it and make it work, not just make it work, help you reinvent yourself in brave new ways, unless you're essentially optimistic. Because you can play these things either way. You can say, this is going to kill us, and it will. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you understand that in many ways technology can unleash the creativity,
yes.
right? It takes away the need to do, the administrivia of work every day. And it challenges us. It challenges us as individuals and leaders and organizations to ask what it is we wish to do out there in the world and how we can do it best, instead of getting kind of lulled by the operational kind of the way that we just sort of do what we do because that's the way we've always done it. That will lull us into failure. That I'm certain of. And so the challenge of the transformation, of digital transformation, is that it forces you to go back to the fundamentals of who you are as an organization, who you are as an individual, and how you're going to go out there and achieve what you wish to achieve.
You have the technical knowledge about how the brain works, and
Yes.
I'd like to get your opinion on how we actually learn.
Yeah.
And going back to Machiavelli, is bad reinforcement more efficient than good reinforcement?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting point. I think neuroscience can help in this issue because the brain basically learns when something inspires us, motivates us, and something is an example for us. And imagine a teacher in Latin America, in Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, Brazil. When we were kids, the teacher gave us information. And that was the power of the teacher, because they have the information and we were receiving information from them. Now, a kid that have a cell phone and access to Google have more information through Google than the president of the United States when 40 or 50 years ago decided to conquer the moon. So information is there. So the teachers are worried because they don't have the weapon that they used to have. But neuroscience can help, I say, and the teacher have three things that can, because they are not worried now, they are under stress because they, I don't have the information. The kids have more information than myself. What do I do? Okay, they have to reinvent, and the system has to reinvent itself to teach the kids what to do with information, how to create new information that when they, with the information that they already have, how to communicate this information, and how to work as a team. So they have to reinvent themselves. We have to reinvent themselves. They reinvent themselves as a teacher, but we have the human factor, and also we, the teacher in Bolivia, in Argentina, that don't have the information that the kids have, can inspire due to the experience to the kids, can motivate the kids, and can appear as an example. So I think that the human factor will give power to the teachers and will provide a good tool for the new education, because it's going to be difficult to reinvent all the teachers with the information, because you know, they have mindset, old mindsets, and the kids are quicker than them in many aspects of technology and digital work, and the digital work. But I think there is an opportunity to reinforce themselves, knowing that inspiring people, being an example, and motivating people is a powerful weapon. I think this is why I think that neuroscience, or knowing how the brain works, can influence education and business in the future.
How do you motivate people to change? What's the catalyst? That's the word I wrote. The catalyst for them to leverage this digital transformation and move to the next level. And I was thinking, I heard 3 words, and I would like to hear your opinion, Facundo. I heard say intuition, and I was thinking, I was envisioning this 50-year-old business person. Is this person gonna trust intuition to go through the next phase of innovation, leveraging technology? I don't know. I just want to put it out on the floor. Intuition. I heard you say fear. No, is fear. So how do we transmit, to your question, how do we transmit fear in the classroom so that if you don't do this, this is going to happen? You know, fear. The other one was emotion. So help us understand how emotion will take that very successful business person and move it to the next level, leverage technology, move into innovation. That answer, I think, is going to be very valuable, very powerful for us teaching, so that we move into that direction. And I think young people is a different story, but this is what's being represented here, so that when they leave out of this room, they can go to their offices and say, okay, I know exactly one step forward that I can accomplish in terms of moving and leveraging that digital transformation. So I think that's important. Yes. That's the audience that we have here today.
Do you think we're going to kill jobs? Do you think we're going to create new jobs at the same time that we kill the other ones?
Yes. I mean,
yes.
yes.
To the first or to the second?
Yes, to both.
I'm not so.
We are gonna kill jobs, and we're gonna create new jobs. I just want to back up one sec. The digital guy. When are you going to go talk to my dad? A lot of companies, I think P&G here in Mexico is one of them, have started a reverse mentoring program where they have younger people come in and sit with the more mature, many executives within the company, and sort of teach them about the digital culture, because there is a digital culture. It is a different way of thinking about communication and connection. But in terms of jobs, I mean, we already see it. Of the 10 highest demand jobs, the ones that employers are having the most trouble filling in the United States right now, something like 8 of them didn't exist 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So the data's there. It's definitely happening. The question is, will schools catch up to this? Are universities the right institutions? Will they rise to this challenge? Or is this not a challenge that they should rise to, because the skills may morph over time? I don't know the answer to that.
I want to go into the mindset of the millennials, of the younger people jumping in the job market these days. I do come from Spain. There is an active population of 20 million. There's an unemployment of around 4 million people, but there is negative unemployment in the digital space. There's hundreds of companies coming to us telling us we have 200 spots that we cannot fill. There is no one in the market that we can bring in. So how do you think this job structure is going to work, and what do you think a young person thinks?
Well, no, I think we have to change what we mean by young people, because the data from neuroscience is showing that when the mature brain learns something new, it creates more connectivity than when some young people learn something new. And if you don't get Alzheimer or a neurological disorder, there will be a new adolescence in the future. People between 65 and 90 years old with healthy brains. So there will be a new adolescence. Adolescence was an abstract word created at some point in our history, and I think that there will be a new adolescence. So I think we need to think ourselves as a young people, because if we are lucky, we are going to live until we are 90, 95. And so we need to think what to do after retirement. Because if we don't do anything, we will get depression. And the depression will affect our body. And the government will pay our pension and also will pay our hospitals. So I think we need to change what do we mean by young people. I think we are young. In this world, we are young. We can live. I am 47. I can live, if you are lucky, if I am lucky, 40 years more or 35 years more. I have to think what to do between my 60s and 90s. Otherwise, I will be depressed and will be, even if I get money from my pension or from my saving, and I have to be motivated. And so I don't believe that the young people have a different mindset. I think that what is happening to them is that the context that we provide as an adult is not attractive for them. For example, in Argentina, like in Spain, or worse than in Spain, many young people are not working, are not studying, they don't do anything. And we blame them. Oh, these kids have a different brain, they are not motivated. I think this situation is in reality a problem for us. We are not providing as a society a stimulating culture to do new things and to do new job and to motivate them. I think we as adults have to think how to motivate the young people and how to get them in the long-term view of a work, etc. So I am not too sure if I buy the term young people for just the young people who have 20 or 25. I think we are young and we need to think in that way in the future.
You know, I think it's tremendously exciting for what's happening here in Mexico or Latin America, just based on that on that demographics. It's no surprise that people from Spain, from Europe are coming here, knocking at the door, because when you look at the OECD, when you look at World Economic Forum statistics, competitiveness, what's the most attractive aspect of Mexico and Latin America? But let's say Mexico, it's the market size. Market size, it's the reason why all these players, companies, people looking for jobs are coming and knocking here at the door of in Mexico, and that has to do with age, has to do with young population. So I think the challenge from an education point of view is how do we take that and create the space, just give them the space, give them the ability to fail, as you were saying earlier in the morning, to fail, it's okay, to open, to provide the tools. I think that's what we can do here as business leaders. I'm not sure whether we are any more capable of becoming experts or comfortable with some of this digital transformation or technology. But I think that giving them, the young people, however they are defined, the young generation coming on board and giving them the space to grasp all these tools and then create these business opportunities, I think it's fantastic. I think that's very exciting. We'll lose some jobs. Mexico, world-class manufacturing. 10 years, 15 years, we'll have to discuss that, but we have 10, 15 years space to create those jobs that eventually will be killed through this technology. But I think it's very exciting.
Do you think that the purpose of people doing your programs has changed? You know, in the 90s, everybody wanted to be an investment banker or in the stock exchange. What do people want now when they study?
Are you asking me? When I see, I have contact with the full-time MBAs. That's the youngest, other than our kids, but full-time MBA. As opposed to one generation or 20 years ago, I hear a lot about social innovation, social entrepreneurship. I hear a lot about entrepreneurship itself. When I left and in the 90s, it was about working for the huge corporations, the big names. Now they are having tough time attracting that type of talent. So I hear a lot more, not enough, but I hear a lot more about entrepreneurship, social innovation, worry about society, worry about the environment. And I think that has to do with what's happening globally, and I think that's very positive.
It looks like we're going to need much more open schemes for the workplace. People working for several people at the same time. Maybe people having more free time in their day-to-day week. You know, 100 years ago we didn't have a weekend. Now maybe we'll have 3-4 day weekends. And a single person will stay in the same company less time, but at the same time will be working for several companies at the same time. Do you think this is real, and is this going to create more anxiety?
Well, I don't come from the business world, so my view is a bit different, and I think that the problem in Latin America is that not everybody can play the game. We are here in this business school, we are talking about the digital world, we are talking about the future of technology, but we have a lot of poverty in Latin America. And even if a poor people can eat well, the context of poverty influence negatively their mind. So I think our governments in Latin America, you as influential people, will have to create a new paradigm to protect the mental capital. I think as a society, government, business, education, everybody has to have a new concept. The most important thing for a country is the mental capital. Because if you protect the brain, not only with food, we have to kill poverty, because the context of poverty influence the poverty create mindset that don't allow the people to get out of poverty, even if they have help from the government. So I think that we need to be creative as a society to put a new paradigm to protect the mental capital. That means food, affection, social networks, but also a very good context, because the context influences our brain and our behavior.
What do you both think about the main assets that we need to protect in the economy in order to be able to remain competitive? And
Well, it's hard to argue with Facundo's points. You know, we keep talking about creativity. There is another quality that I think we need to develop and protect, especially in an era of mushrooming information, and that's critical judgment. The ability to discern the value of information, to judge whether it's true or false, but also its relative importance. And I actually, that's something I struggle with some younger editors and writers, is very poorly developed critical judgment. But I also think that there's a kind of realism. You know, we talk about techno-optimism and techno-pessimism. I think about realism a lot. You know, how do we thread the path through the two poles there? And you talked about what happens when you're realistic, right?
Yes.
Does it always have to go that way? Do you always
No.
have to get depressed?
No.
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 So I think that we live in an era where we get lots and lots of messages, and back to critical judgment. I think as a society, what we need back is the judgment to say, I need to ignore this,
Yes.
and I need to hew to this path because that's what's best for me and for my family and my community. And that strikes me as a cultural kind of an attribute that you can develop
Yes.
and nurture.
Totally.
Edmundo?
I think our most important asset is our people. I think that what do we do to protect those assets that need protection, and what do we need to do to develop those assets that can be developed, and how do we develop those leaders that will allow us to take society to the next level? I think that's should be our most important concern. And those are different groups, even within Mexico, regionally speaking. We have different regions, different Mexicos. So I think our most important asset is precisely our people, our population, but they are so different geographically, socioeconomically, educational-wise, that we need to be very smart, very savvy on how do we interact with each one of those groups. And whatever we do, it should be geared towards that aspect.
Why do you think, and have your personal opinion, do we have this very crazy political situation where people don't identify themselves with leaders, and at the same time we see left and right completely new ways to approach leadership on the political level? On one side, raising this fear of the outside and protecting our land and going back to very emotional senses. On the other side, going to this new very collaborative platforms. In the case of Spain, we have something like Occupy Wall Street, but it turned into a political party that's about to win the elections. Why do you think this is happening? Is this related to technology? Does this represent the values that we just mentioned? Is this going to help or not? Or what do you think? And if you want to pass, I understand.
Well, so I don't think it's new. I think that we've always had leaders who appealed to our baser instincts, to our terror, to our fear and our anger. I think that technology certainly has contributed to anger and a feeling of dispossession because it has caused people to lose jobs. It's undeniable. On the other hand, you have this example from Spain where there is a way to turn it around and turn it into something constructive. But clearly technology has contributed, but it's not the only factor, right? And in the past when this has happened, it wasn't necessarily technology, but when people feel disaffected and dispossessed, they're going to take their anger out on someone, especially, or on people, on a population, and when a demagogue is going to, incite all this, that's what happens. And we have example after example of this through history. Today it happens to be technology, but it'll be other things as well.
I think what technology is to be blamed for this situation has to do with connectivity. We're not only in Spain, but Filipinas, Mr. Trump, Argentina. What we're seeing from a political perspective is the society being discontent, upset about the differences, either from an economic point of view, social point of view, but they've been there for centuries. They just didn't know. I just close with this. I think in Mexico my generation grew with this idea of if I'm okay and my family is okay, then I don't care what's happening outside. That no longer works.
I think technology is good. It created new jobs, and also is complicating all jobs. Israel is now creating policies for the people who were excluded from the knowledge ecosystem that they have created. So I don't see a big deal in that. I think that the problem is leadership. I think technology is connecting more people. We are more connected, and this connection is transforming, challenging the leadership. In fact, the World Bank last year wrote a report called Mind, Society and Behavior. The World Bank wrote a report about the brain because they have experience of trying to help Peru, Bangladesh, some countries in Africa with policies, but the policies didn't work because they realized that although the policies were good intentions, they didn't take into account how the Peruvian thought, the mindset of the Bangladesh people. So leadership, I think, implies to have a lot of empathy and to be in the place of the other guy. It's like you and your daughter. If you want to lead your daughter, you have mindset, but you have to listen to your daughter, and you have to learn from your daughter, and you have to be in her brain, sorry, in order to lead. You won't lead your daughter with your mental mindsets. So I think connectivity is challenging leadership, and we as influential people have to do the exercise of be in the other people's minds to be leader those population. Otherwise, they won't follow us.